And people criticize, like, they have no savings. I'm like, how can they? Oh, okay. But I'm like, how can they? How can they save? You know, it's impossible. But she's crazy.
Hello, John.
How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Busy day. Very busy day.
Hello, Leah. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent.
Is it still raining?
Yeah, it's just fine.
Oh, the buses weren't too late. Accidents weren't good.
It was everywhere. Alternate 7? 2.
Route
There's
7's
there's-
closed.
Yeah, that was a fatal accident.
Yeah, left it-
And then there was another one,
Where was that at?
Campbell and Route 7 near Tom Hanna.
Near the top end?
Yeah.
Were you home, Dana?
Campbell's near the town.
Yes.
Is it?
Were you
I think
home?
so.
Yeah, well, not at 2 something. When did
But
it
you
happen?
made it down?
I came 40, because the back.
It was closed. Yeah, 7 was closed. I just begged that they would let me through. I'm like, so they let me. They said I couldn't go any further than Ford, but I got through there.
There was something going on when I was on my way home. I stopped at a Walmart pickup. And there's ambulances and state troopers all over Hoosick Street. I'm like, what's going
Are you
on?
kidding? Oh my gosh.
Well, I couldn't figure it out because they were in this, one was coming up from the city. Then when I'm coming up, it's like backed up at school 18. And then one goes down with its lights on.
Oh,
I'm like, what is going on? So I go to Walmart, I pick stuff up, and there's ambulances going by. I'm like, Jesus.
going down or going
Going
up?
down.
Going down.
And then it's later, and it pulls in. I can't see where it's going. Lights on and everything. I look, it says, Pittstown or something? Grafton? It was a Grafton Emergency Squad. And then when I go to leave, over by the old GameStop, there's like 5 vehicles with flashing red lights. I don't know what was going on
It's
over
like
there.
a
I'm like,
crazy
oh my
day.
God.
What
what's
time
going
did
on?
you? What time did you get home?
I left work at 2:30. This was about
So you were
like
earlier.
3:15, so it was like 3 o'clock.
Because I stopped by my mom's at about 4:30, and it was gridlock around
Yeah, because everybody's, yeah,
every direction.
because everybody's taking
Tamarack,
Tamarack Road.
yeah,
and
and
that was
then
all that.
coming over. What is it? Was it 278 or whatever that
Yep.
is? That was all backed
Yep.
up.
I know to bring the snack.
What was going on? But then 7 is closed out near me. They just reopened. Actually, as I was coming down, I saw them moving
I was
everything out of
going
the
to
way,
alternate
but-
7 you get on North River. There's always
Last
accidents.
minute, and then
2 lanes blocked. There was like 4 state police cars, a tow truck, an ambulance. There was a motorcycle pulled over. A guy sitting on the guard of the car. I don't know what was going
Oh
on.
my
So that was blocked all the way up,
Oh my
almost to
gosh.
Hoosick Street. Not to Hoosick Street, almost to the bridge. Just
Yeah.
probably just up the hill, just a little bit was stopped. And just like it was nonstop the rest of the way home. Oh my God.
That one was funny because yesterday I ran down to Hannaford and I wanted to get gas, so I kept going a little bit further to get gas, come back up, and I'm like, and it's like stop dead, and people are beeping or whatever. So they had someone pulled over right on Hoosick at rush hour. I'm like, what could you have possibly done to? Basically a crawl, right? And
I don't know how.
I hope it was worth it
I like to
because
race up the meetings. That could have, I don't know, I'm not
it
saying
could have
that's it. I
been,
don't
it could have been, but
This is like a better
Yeah,
idea.
I'm all about
I usually
gummies.
like to demure, but yeah.
caused more havoc than it was worth.
Jeez, on my pink
Oh, good.
A little good gas station.
The Sunoco, mobile on Hoosick Street.
Nails in Latham Farm, so Hannaford.
I've never seen them before.
They don't have time or patience to.
I haven't seen him in a while. I was showing there.
He's working.
I've been there before.
Okay, I probably just missed him, but it seemed like I saw him every single time I was there.
He's usually going in for like between 3 and 5, but today he had to go in at 2.
Can I just give a quick announcement? For this meeting, if you do want to do public comment, we're going to ask you to sign up.
Because this
You can sign up right here with Maureen. Because this is an official board meeting rather than a workshop.
Matter of fact, Amy, we usually don't, but
That pale?
Pacific this week, he made it for him. You know, like he had to work every day. So Amy's actually delivering it to him right now.
So you didn't get to enjoy it?
Yeah, he's gonna enjoy it at work.
At
but
work.
it is what it is, right?
Yeah,
But we're like, we'll deliver it to you. I drive a lot of the kids around in Andrew's class. They refer to me as Schuber. And I was Schuber
Oh,
Eats
that's
when I
funny.
delivered to Andrew.
That's clever.
Ann Glenn, she's Glift because her name's Ann Glenn.
Yep.
She's Glift.
Right.
Right.
Switch sides. Hey, nice color.
Very confusing.
I got a green jacket too. So your others today.
Yeah, I stopped by just for a few minutes.
Dina, is this the setup you imagined?
Yeah. Good job.
You did a great job.
It's good. I like it.
Dolores was way up the street. She was like most of the way down yesterday when I drove home.
So she's up and about again?
She's out. She's out with her daughter was there in the aid. She usually goes walking with the aid. She's got that walking chair she sits
okay,
on.
okay.
I mean, but she was, I don't know if you know where the Ferrises are. It's like the third house before the
No.
end. She was all the way to there on the right.
Really?
Yes.
Good for her,
She's
huh?
feisty. Yeah, good for her is right. She doesn't get that.
You know what?
I feel like 6 months ago, the aides were going to kill her.
You thing over the last.
What you do?
Aide took too long of a hot shower and set off the smoke detector, so she got on the kitchen table and turned it off.
Stop it.
Furious. Chair to the table.
I'm sitting in a meeting, somebody's yelling at me. And
Days the aide wouldn't even speak to her.
it could be funny if it wasn't me. I'd probably find it.
Oh my God.
She's determined.
Wow. The table. She had to get up onto
She's
a
using a-
chair and then holding on to when she was
I
up
don't
there.
know. I'm like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Yeah, my aide wouldn't talk to me for like 4 days.
Wait till the terminus.
She's been very independent. She told me
Yes.
when I moved in there that like the day she can't take care of the property.
That there, I think it's Allegra High
So it-
that I was doing.
Absolutely. No.
If you have some, pass them out to the audience.
Her landline isn't working. I keep thinking it's her calling, so I always try to call back. It might get rings, but it won't pick up. And they keep fixing it. It never works. They keep telling me, just shut this thing off. Just shut it off.
Yeah.
You're spending $40 a month on. I'm like,
Right.
she's having a hard time pulling the plug, but you can't even answer it. It rings and it just
Well, I
click,
don't
click,
think
click, click.
they, I don't think they maintain the landlines anymore. They're just gonna be obsolete.
Okay.
They're just
Thank
gonna
you.
be obsolete, you know?
Yeah, we were just having, you know,
That's the one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, the big.
Yeah, this is.
So close to the screen. I'll let you watch them some night, and then you can make that call.
You're right.
Yeah, $9. Yeah, 2 to 1.
Okay, if this clock is ready to set the
We thought we had everything. One up, one.
Oh, we'd like to start the meeting. Everybody please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all for coming. For those who were not at the meeting last week, this meeting is to strictly discuss the budget and how to make cuts to stay under the cap. We took a lot of questions, a lot of input last meeting, but I think rather than us talking, I think we would move public comment. It's normally at the end. I think we want to move it to the beginning and take any comments you may have. We as a board have discussed different things that we can and cannot cut. Again, for those that weren't here last time, there was a little bit of extra money that the state gave us that we literally didn't know about when we made the first budget, because the state, as you know, didn't pass their budget. So we did have a little bit of extra money. I think we had put out a slide about the things that we thought we were going to have to cut. And so tonight's discussion really is going to be about what we can use that little bit of money for to keep.
Can I add two more
Yes,
things really quick?
please.
In addition to deciding on the budget tonight that the board has to adopt tonight so that we can get out the required information, you also wanted to have a conversation based on the feedback that you got from people about the polling hours and the polling location. So those three things: polling hour, polling location, and the total budget amount.
Okay. So why don't we start why don't we start with polling? I know that there's been discussion to keep the hours 8 to 8. Other people have said, let's do it 12 to 9.
I like going to 9 because I like keeping it till 9 because of the feedback of the sports ending at 8. And
Okay.
I know when we were here at the polls, there were, a handful of parents rushing in, trying to vote, and they were coming from sporting events, so.
I know that we were here, we turned a few people away at 8 o'clock.
And I think some of the feedback on moving it to 12 to 9 was based on our ability to have folks working the polls, but Dina,
We
it
have-
sounds like you got
We
some
have folks working the
volunteers.
polls.
I call them volunteers, but they're going to do it.
I thought that was more based upon the location rather than,
Oh, that's true too.
so.
Right, that's a good point.
So if you want to do it in the elementary, we can't have it before because we can't have the elementary secure. So.
I just wouldn't feel comfortable having people just walking through
Well,
the
there's no
elementary
easy
school.
way than lunches and all that. I'm not comfortable with that either. At least I am not.
No, I agree.
But don't we have regions going on in the high school too?
So,
Yeah, well, we can secure one section.
elementary is a half day that day, that's why 12 to 9 was suggested.
Yes.
Also, during COVID, they did breakfast in bags in the hallway so the kids didn't have to utilize the cafeteria. And we did reach out to ask if that would be an option for that day, and they could entertain that so that kids could be blocked off and not have to be in that part of the school if it's an option.
So I guess we need to decide hours and where.
I personally don't like ending it early. I think it's unfair to the public to have a shorter day. I prefer having a longer day, but that's my opinion.
Okay, so I know Dina's volunteers have volunteered for 13 hours. So that would be 8 to 9. So everybody's good with 8 to 9?
Yep.
Okay. And where?
I do like the elementary if we could make it happen, because I feel that's where the majority of the families' parents are.
I mean, what if we did 9 to 9 at the elementary? It's still 12 hours and we're extending it. So what if we did 9 to 9 at
The only thing I have about the elementary, besides the security aspect, is the parking. I mean, this area does kind of have its own little lot. In front of the elementary, if school's in session,
Well, you don't, the seniors are gone, so you do have more the parking lot will be open for the senior parking lot will be open, right? In front of the circle?
We couldn't have parking in front of the elementary school between 8 and 9 because that's when the buses would be coming in.
Right.
So that wouldn't be
and you
available.
couldn't have it again when the buses pick up.
Correct. Correct.
Would it be feasible to have it in 2 locations? Could we do 8 to 11 and then noon until 9 at the elementary?
I think, and I don't want to be negative, but I think that would be a logistical nightmare. I
The
think
machines and so forth, okay.
Lori, I know you're kind of organizing an event that day. Does it matter where the vote is from your perspective on where things are organized, or?
I mean, the majority of people will end up at the elementary school, so that was my push for that. However, we did have some suggestions of perhaps maybe a school bus that could drive around campus to bring people to the overflow lot at the soccer field, or to drop them off at polling, or for parking to kind of catch them and encourage them to, I don't want to walk that far. Guess what? You don't have to. We got that covered. Or, somebody bringing in a golf cart or something and making rides available. So we'll figure it out. We'll work around it. But we will have those few people who are like, I'm not going over.
how much space do you need? We didn't really talk about that yet. I know you've got a band coming.
We've got a band coming. We've got, I think we're up to like 10 vendors coming. We've got 2 bounce houses. We're planning to kind of make a square in the back elementary field so that it's a nice area for everyone to kind of congregate, bring a blanket, sit out, listen to the music. We've got 4 food trucks, 1 dessert, Girl Scout cookies, a bunch of different fun things for people to kind of walk around. Small petting zoo that 4-H is running. And then we'll have a game area set up for the kids with field day type games that National Junior Honor Society is going to come and field for us. We also talked about the idea of having parents be able to sign their kids into that so that they have no excuse to go over and vote if they don't want to bring their kids. We will watch them for the 10 minutes it takes so that they can come over here and do that. So lots of moving stuff. I anticipate we will take the entire field.
So I know that there was a discussion about a tent possibly, so is that off the table?
We ordered a 20 by 20 pole tent from Wayland's. That'll basically be used to cover the band. God forbid it rains. It's not going to rain, but God forbid, just to make sure that their equipment stays safe. We didn't get another tent for other areas, but we certainly have tons of families that have pop-ups, and we could, say, hey, bring something, or we could put that out there.
Can I ask where would the food trucks be?
Well, we were going to ask about that because we obviously don't want to take up parking. We have the thought of having them drive in earlier and potentially park by like the basketball court area. So that way they were kind of all pushed back and out and not taking up needed parking. And it was a nice area to walk around. Nobody would have to worry about cars coming in and out or around them. So if that's allowed, that's the ideal spot we would like.
Okay.
Them. And if not, it depends on where polling ends up and where
I
they're.
was just wondering if polling didn't need to be in the middle or in the high school, that the food trucks could be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. This is your gig,
No, so
so.
if we end up in secondary, maybe we can put them all along that front ring right.
The auditorium or something, yeah.
Yeah, so that it's a nice grab some food, walk over, yeah.
Where are Regions exams that day?
I don't have the exact schedule.
So, but will they be in that gym?
Yes.
So I just asked Dr. Maloney, I think we could ask the staff if they would, and to please park at the soccer field. In doing that, and also ask staff to park in this lot over here to try and free up almost that whole lot near in the back of the elementary school. I think that would work, right? And if that's the case, I think the elementary school works.
Well, what I can do is I can connect with Lori in the next couple of days and we can like literally measure it out, make sure we have space. We've got some time to do that. Make sure you got power and stuff like that.
We're already on Melissa too, so we're good.
I do think though, you're right. We certainly could get a school bus. That's easy enough, but even like a golf cart might help some people ambulate
Yeah.
over if somebody.
I think it would
connection there.
encourage the few who are hesitant.
Okay, so everybody's good with the elementary school? We don't have to vote on that, right?
So wait a minute, I just want to make sure we're all talking the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So
me too.
8 to 9
Yes.
Where did you decide the polling location?
I think we're deciding the elementary school. If that,
We just have to confirm, bagged breakfast with Louise, and that there's something blocking off that hallway in front of the gym from the cafeteria door.
so that works for you?
We'll figure it out.
We can make it work.
We'll figure it out.
Will the sheriff be here that day? Maybe we could have him stay most of the day if possible. Being a region, stay in the elementary school in that area.
Could we have voting in the library?
Yeah, I can check, I'll check with Mrs. Honorato to see where she thinks would be best, because I want to make it so it's easiest in and
In and
easiest
out.
out. So people aren't, you know,
Right.
wandering through the entire building.
I think the cafeteria is probably most feasible.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. We'll figure it out.
Okay. So that brings us to the budget discussion. The number, I guess, the number we're looking to cut, and I think everybody has a spreadsheet in front of them or a thing, is about 250,000, Stephanie?
234,000.
I'm kind of a round number guy. Stephanie's a little more precise. That's why she has her job. So, you know, I know one of the things we talked about was the resource officer. I know a lot of people have reached out to different politicians. And I know I personally have, and I've gotten zero response. I know some other people have gotten snarky responses from some of them, which I found very disappointing, but it is what it is. So, you know, that happens to be the top thing on the list, so that's why I brought it up first. The next thing on the list was to actually get rid of a science teacher. Our mission here is to educate kids. It is certainly.
This is a resignation. We're not eliminating any positions.
Is this a resignation?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not aware of that.
So this would be a position that we currently have vacant. If I don't fill it, that would be the difference of savings for not filling that particular position with a potential employee. And again, those are kind of round numbers because you don't know who you're going to hire and what step they would be in and what type of insurance they would need. However, the pro to that is no one would lose a job and there's a cost savings. The con to that is we won't be able to offer as many electives. So it's not a no consequence issue, but if the goal is to preserve positions and preserve jobs, that is an option that we could make work.
How many students ballpark would that affect?
I gotta be honest, I don't know off the top of my head.
Just curious as to,
I'm gonna say 50, but please don't quote me on that because I'm not really sure what they're subscribed to. Yeah, I mean,
But there's other courses they could take.
there is. We have added a lot of electives in the last couple of years, particularly in the area of earth science. So it's not that there's not any, but I don't want to pretend like this would not have a consequence because there would be things we weren't able to offer.
Okay.
Would they be able to take the science that they would take here possibly through Hudson Valley?
Like over the summertime?
Well, or whatever, that,
Oh, they
That-
could take it for free.
you
It's a
know,
valley.
Yeah, so to answer your question, they probably could. They do offer some life science classes. This would take away some of the biology electives that we currently have. Not all of them, but some of them, if we were to do that.
okay.
But again, no lost jobs. Okay. And just a quick comment on the school resource officer. I don't think Matt is here, but no. We had several parents offer to help, put us in touch with the sheriff's department. We did speak at some point yesterday, yesterday with them. One of the two issues, one obviously is the cost. Two is the fact that they were looking for a 3-year contract. They are willing to do a 1-year contract as kind of like a one-time thing. So that is, I'm putting that on the table that yes, it's the number doesn't go down, but also means we have flexibility for next year to, revisit it. So we're not locking ourselves into trying to find $115,000 every year.
The one thing I'll just remind everybody here in the public, Jake Ashby has been a huge proponent for legislation that would impact all schools. So although, financially there's not money to be given right now, I think the idea of letting them know the importance and everybody, that this is something that parents really see as a valuable resource to not just our school, but other schools, I think is important just to share that. It's not an ask necessarily, but just more sharing your position. He's been a big champion of that.
One other point just to make is, and Stephanie helped me with the numbers, but the gap truly is 1,234,000. I say that because we're addressing $1 million of it through our reserves. Those reserves are not unlimited. What do we have?
About over 5 million.
Just a little over 5 million, which sounds like a big number.
So I will go back to the spreadsheet I shared with you all. We're about at 15% out of 84 school districts in the capital region, bottom 15% for the amount of fund balance we have. Bottom 15%. So.
Yeah.
It may
And-
seem like a big number.
But it's not.
but
That's before we take the million out too, right? 5.2,
Yeah.
okay.
Right. So we share that because on the one hand, you say, oh, we could just take out a little bit more. On the other hand, the reality is that money, that $1 million is not, we're not going to make that up in the market or interest income or whatever. It's going to be $1 million that we lose. We don't spend all of it because something comes in cheaper, or we spend more because things keep going up in cost. Reality is we then have 4 million the next year. You keep doing the math, and there's a point at which you don't have that reserve anymore. So that's just putting that out there because we are taking $1 million out of those reserves to make this happen.
Reserves and fund balance.
Is that-
Combo, reserves and. fund balance.
Correct. Yeah, that's all of it. All of it. Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing on our list was the kickball program, which I know is beloved, but it just doesn't seem like something that I think we're all in agreement that needs to go. Next thing on the list is the elementary guidance counselor. I guess I'd look for thoughts on that. I'm certainly not an educator. I don't know the value of that versus the value of a science teacher or a school resource officer.
Angelina, I can't remember, is this a lost job or someone moving into a vacancy or?
So that would be a lost job. We added an additional elementary guidance counselor with COVID funds, and then has subsequently been absorbed by the general budget.
I guess my concern is that if we lose the SRO, which we all know the SRO does provide some of
Guidance?
that guidance, and then to also lose a guidance counselor, I just think that, are we putting the elementary teachers at more of a risk to actually be able to teach adequately or deal with a situation?
Does the SRO spend a lot of time in the elementary, in the guidance role? Just curious, or would it be more over?
Different things. Our elementary guidance counselor really does a fantastic job of doing programming. She goes into classes, does social emotional learning. She does groups with kids that have particular needs. There's a myriad of different things. And I guess the hard thing for me is when, if you were to ask, which one of these things is more important, I couldn't say, because they were all added very specifically to attend to a specific need. Those needs didn't go away.
Right.
So I think that's the hard part.
How many elementary counselors do we have?
One.
This is it.
We have 3 secondary counselors, 6 through 12, and 1 at the elementary school.
And previous to COVID, we had 0.
That's correct. There was a social worker and a school psych at the elementary school, but now there's a social work, school psych, and a school counselor.
So there is something there to kind of fill some of that void.
I think they do different things, but
But for
to answer, there
a
is
kid in
some.
crisis or whatever.
And is there a possibility that the secondary school counselor could maybe spend part of their time in the elementary to
Yeah, I mean, I think anything's possible, certainly. I think you remember at the last meeting, Mrs. Folgan stood up and kind of spoke about some of the things that might not get done. For example, some of the extra things like the trades fair and, you know, some of those things that we have become beloved, but they'll just be stretched a little thin. We wouldn't,
You wouldn't get the quality.
yeah, I mean, we wouldn't leave the elementary school unattended to, but that I think just puts a little bit more of a squeeze on. You're doing four people's work with 3 people, I guess is probably the best way to say it.
Next thing on the list was the Huddle program. I know there's been discussion about the possibility of the Booster Club pitching in for that.
Yeah, I'll just speak. The Booster Club and as well as the PTA have been absolutely fantastic. I think the really tricky part for this is we do get aided on this software, but the bill comes. So you don't get the aid on the bill. The bill is $14,950 for it. The aid comes back the next year. So that was part of the challenge to this particular donation is it's.
I'm still trying to understand this. I apologize, Stephanie. So it was the total bill, the $14,950. Is that the total bill or does that include a knockoff of the aid from last year?
No, that's the total. You just get the bill from
Okay.
BOCES and it's
So-
got the full amount on it.
So at the end of the day, then the school is really out like 5,200. This is just like the elementary school teachers. I was going back and
So
forth.
I guess my point in the huddle
Oh,
thing is
I understand.
that, yeah, so we're getting the aid next year regardless.
Mhm.
Because the aid is a year, lag. So we have huddle this year, we're gonna get the aid in 2025, 26, regardless if we
Sure.
cut it or don't.
I was just trying to drill down to what the output would be from the booster club at the end of the day. Should they get aid on it? Is it the 5,200 or is it the 14,500? And it looks like it's the 5,200.
So in theory, they would have to pay the
14,500.
15,000 upfront, but in subsequent years would only have to pay the 6,000, rough numbers.
That's how.
I think that's probably part of the conversation because I believe, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, when we do buy a BOCES service, Stephanie accounts for that as a revenue piece,
Right.
right? So it's almost like assumed that revenue piece will be part of the revenue package for that upcoming year. Does that make sense? It's tricky because
It's
It's
no
already
different-
in the revenue.
It's no different than the pre-K teacher, basically.
it's slightly different than the pre-K just because of the way it's aided. I know
Okay.
it sounds like mumbo. Yeah.
Oh, is it really? Okay. Thank you for that.
But I think the point would be if we
That's
take
fine.
it out of
Get that, but-
the expense,
We're still getting the aid
Right.
because it's this year's huddle.
and then for future years, even though we get it, we probably eliminate that on the revenue side as far as like,
Right,
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
not-
give it back.
not really eliminate it, but yeah, give it back,
Credit or something.
credit or whatever it might be.
Because we would be, if we cut it right now, not next year, but the next year following that, we would lose that aid anyhow.
That's correct.
So if the booster club was paying it,
Then
the
that,
aid back to them, I mean, in my, unless I'm not understanding, we would have no loss there. If we're cutting it, we're not gonna get the aid back in a subsequent year. And if the booster club pays it and we give the aid back to them, we're still not getting the aid back in that year. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I just,
I think the way you explained it the first time, I think works the best in that
right, that's what I was wondering.
if the Booster Club pays for the whole thing this year,
Right. Yeah, I would think
and
so.
then if we're in this same situation next year, the Booster Club could just give us 6, whatever, right? Rather than giving the whole 15 and we,
Right, not that we necessarily give it back to them, but
exactly.
pay the unaided portion.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Subsequent years,
Yeah.
it's the
That's basically
non-aided.
what I was asking.
I think
Right.
just one thing to note, just for keeping this in your brain, we would have to deduct out if we were gonna credit them for all intents and purposes. That would be a revenue that you're actually using as part of funding the next year's budget. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yep.
We're just trying to look at
Yeah,
alternatives
you're either taking the aided amount out of revenue or you're putting the expense back in.
There hasn't been a lot of talk about huddle, but it is widely used in co-op. I mean, anybody that's watched the sports, any athletics on YouTube, it's through the huddle camera. So that.
I think the hard part, which for me is really disappointing, is how darn expensive. The
I
price
agree.
the price of this escalated like through the roof. They locked, they got everybody in during COVID. You can't have people at games. Come on, invest in the equipment. And then this price is not negotiated. This is how much it costs to keep this going. So they really can pretty much name the price. The alternative to Huddle is a different program, but parents pay. And that would be, parents would have to log in and pay a monthly fee. And sometimes you might even see this with your kids at games, if they're playing at a place that doesn't have Huddle. And I felt uncomfortable with that. I just didn't think that was.
Well, I don't think it's just for viewing purposes.
not.
It's
No, it's
not,
no,
because
but
the
I'm just-
soccer team has that, the girls soccer team had that, what was the name of it?
It's for like college.
It's for
recruitment
college
stuff.
recruiting and what was it?
Is it NSF?
No,
That's what I was referring to.
so one of the parents bought the equipment and it gets raised up and then if you have a membership, then like 12 hours after the game, I get sent all of Zelia's, like all my daughter's touches,
stats
all
and-
of her stats, everything that,
That's what Huddle does too.
so, that it's, you know, and you can pay by the month or you can pay a yearly subscription and we get to keep it for basically the footage forever.
The one thing
So-
that people did ask is, do the majority of our teams use it? And I would say many of them use it.
I think baseball, softball are the only teams really that don't.
And
Because it,
and soccer.
Track and field,
Track,
it's
The outdoor ones are a little hard because the camera,
Mhm.
it's just not as easy with that one.
Now it's bugging me.
I mean, there are options out there.
So I guess for my purposes, am I following up with the Booster Club to share with them that the board is offering an opportunity for them to pay the $14,950, but the following year, we would back out the aid if we had to be in that position for the following year? I just want to make sure I'm understanding and can communicate that correctly.
Back out the aid, yeah, or put in the non-aided as an expense, you know, whatever it is.
Okay, the next thing on the list was the half music teacher.
To me, this is still a job. I
Yep.
mean, it's a half-time job, so you're not losing that completely, but, you know, from what I understand, this individual is influential in the Choraleers and the musical and all the things that make us really proud to be here, so.
And a half-time job could roll into a full-time job very easily. If, you know, I was told that my job was suddenly going to be half the amount of hours and half the amount of pay, I'd be searching for a new job.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's very I see what you're saying, very impactful, so.
I'm not
Not for
comfortable cutting the, I feel that it not only is it a job, but it's a, you know,
These kids are,
these
it's
kids,
college,
these kids
going to
work. I
college
mean, right, we have.
from these programs,
Right.
so.
So just so we're clear for adding all the monies and things, right now, thus far, you've decided to not replace science,
Yes.
right? For the savings of 109 some change,
Yep.
right?
I'm I'm kind of, for the guidance counselor, I'm still on the fence. I'm with Tammy. I'm not sure I'm comfortable cutting that yet, so.
Okay.
I mean, I think the only things that we're comfortable cutting so far are the science teacher, kickball, Huddle, with the understanding that there'd be Booster Club involvement.
So we're gonna back out the science teacher that you've just talked
Yep.
about. You're going to reinstate the music to 1.0. So we're adding the half of that salary, right? Okay,
So we're keeping music.
Yeah. that's what I just, yeah.
Yeah, we're keeping.
So just kickball right now and science teacher.
And Huddle.
Well, we're gonna keep that in because we're gonna have.
If the Booster Club,
So it's gonna offset the it's gonna be a revenue.
You can book it that way?
Yep, I can do it as a revenue.
So it doesn't affect the tax cap, right?
Right, okay.
Okay,
41.
okay. The next is to cut a UPK class.
I would say absolutely not, since we got the extra money. 16,000 does not
I
make
don't
any
think the
difference.
Price tag in what you get for value on that, I don't think those match up at all in my mind.
Nope.
agree with that.
And then the next item is the reach teacher.
keep,
I feel the same way.
I feel that
I want to keep that, right?
I did have an opportunity to meet with him a handful of times, and although not optimal, definitely not optimal, the program can still run without the teaching assistant.
I was just going to ask
Um,
that.
Right, so,
It's better with, the more hands, the better, there's no question about it, but he can serve a good portion of the kids without that.
And just to be clear, the TA has another function.
Another
So,
job.
so right now, the way I see things, unless something drastically changes, we just had a retirement of a teaching assistant at the elementary school today. So I will backfill that for the month. And then that person could revert back into their current job, which is an aide position. So they won't lose a job, and then we'll just capture that.
Perfect.
That's at least how I envision it. Now, somebody could move in tomorrow. There could be a CSE meeting where somebody's programming changes. I think that's one of the most, and I know I say this often, very volatile parts of our budget is, you know, if a child needs a particular program or particular supports, that's a person.
But there is some contingencies in that, in the current budget we're talking about for some special ed.
There's one.
There is one.
Yep.
Okay. So that would certainly cover if you needed a TA. There's a full,
So what that means is there's an estimate built into the special education budget for one outside placement for, you know, Wildwood, Vanderheiden.
which is hundreds
Questar,
of
something.
thousands of dollars, or 100,000.
I would say
Yeah,
probably,
there's 100,000.
I would say probably 100,000. And again, that could be a meeting tomorrow that's decided. We try to predict to the best of our ability, but we're still getting enrollments every single day.
So Stephanie, check my rough math. If we
I know, I was doing my
remove the science teacher, which is just, we're not backfilling for resignation. We remove the kickball, we remove huddle, and we remove the reach TA, and we use $1 million worth of fund balance / reserves, we would still have a gap of about 26, 27,000.
We're still keeping huddle in because we're still gonna buy it. So we still have to have that on the expenditure side, them offsetting it with the donation revenue. So it's still staying in the expenditure budget.
Right, but for the purposes of closing the gap,
The basic of closing the gap.
You said, I understand it was, you could take that off of this list.
I'm sorry, Ryan, can you say
Gap of 27,000.
27 what?
27,394.
Okay,
So
so the outstanding items that were on the list, if I'm hearing this correctly, are the school resource officer and the elementary guidance counselor? Am I accurate?
Did you have that in your calculation?
yeah, so the 27,394 gap assumes that we keep the SRO and keep the counselor.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood that.
So
So here,
So can they,
I'll put my opinion for $27,000, I would love
my
to
number's a
take
little
out
different.
$27,000 more of fund balance and pay for it, understanding that we need everyone's help in this room with the SRO for next year, because it's just really expensive.
and with the understanding that next year, we most likely are going over the tax cap.
Yep.
You don't know what'll happen next year, because you don't know what the governor's race is gonna do.
Right, but I'm just saying, like.
We don't know what that's gonna look like.
So I understand that, but it's still, it might be a possibility.
Yep.
Where
I think-
normally we try very hard to not do that.
Never done.
So, right, we've never done it. So I just, that might be more of a norm then.
And Stephanie was helpful for us and just to educate this room. Health insurance was one of the things that we pointed to as a major cost driver. The health insurance increase, so forget the total cost of health insurance, which is a very large number. The increase alone with this year's budget was an additional $650,000. So when you're already at, I mean, another thing to like lobby and talk to people about, but can't cut health insurance. It's a contracted rate. It's, we have to do it. But when we talk about, increased aid, et cetera, the numbers that we need are much higher than what's being discussed. So,
Right, that eats up this number that's somewhere around $500,000 that was floating around of additional aid that we received. It eats that up plus some.
Plus a lot.
yeah, that was total aid. Stephanie, what was the increase in aid over last year? It's like,
Say 536. I thought it was 530.
I think that was the total number. I don't know.
Increased aid.
'Cause I know we didn't get any the year before.
So
Yeah, whatever.
I think before we vote, we'd welcome public comment at this point.
Brenda Rafferty. So it's my understanding that we're keeping music, we're keeping UPK, and we're keeping the REACH program. Is that correct?
Without a TA, yes. That's the discussions.
And it's still subject to a vote, but that's what we're discussing.
And while I'm sad to see the other ones go, I'm really glad to see that these are sticking. So, thank you for that.
Piper?
Y'all said everything.
Hi, I'm Katie Chapman. I just wanted to, I was curious because actually it took a while for the Brunswick budget vote flyer to get to my house. I just got it yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yesterday.
Was it postmarked on the 9th?
I checked on the pictures.
May 20th.
Postmarked on May 20th?
The stamp on the front, or the one, there's like another one underneath it, like one's red, one's black.
Oh, and then the red one is 5/9, sorry.
So that's the day we sent them out.
Yeah.
The earliest, and this is good information, thanks for bringing this up. We are gonna do a postcard for the next round. I'll actually finish up some stuff for that tomorrow. It'll have a QR code, it'll have some key information summarizing kind of the changes from one budget to the next budget and direct people to the website. And one of the hopes is because it's not as bulky, even though we send it regular mail, not bulk mail, that it'll go faster because the earliest we can send the next postcard out is the day after our next budget hearing. And the next budget hearing is the 5th. So that can't even go in the mail until June 6th. So I don't even know what to say to that, honestly. I can just share that we made all sorts of efforts and we have over the last couple of years. I've driven it to the Albany post office, like, and walked it in myself. We stopped sending it bulk mail, even though it's cheaper because bulk mail goes out when they have time. This is supposed to be, so I'm sorry.
I mean, it is what it is, but my question actually was because I received one from Troy Central School District before that. And I actually was trying to compare them to see, where we were seeing increases, where they were seeing increases. And I noticed that they actually did not see a huge difference in insurance costs. So my question was kind of, why are we seeing this astronomical increase and the city of Troy that employs way more people is not? Are they doing something different than we are?
So I can answer part of that. So our district belongs to a health insurance consortium. We belong to Wexler RCG Trust. Troy does not belong to that same trust. They're in a trust called Kashik. So that's part of it. We're grouped in with the RCG Trust. They're grouped in with the Kashik Trust. Their experience could have been different than ours. What we get in an increase is dependent a lot on our rating and how we do. So it's both of those is why.
I assumed that it was probably something along those lines.
We also had, and I don't have the exact number, but just kind of in general, we did have several employees that went from like a single or 2-person plan to a family plan. And that's much, much more expensive. And I think, and I can't speak to Troy's stuff specifically, but they have a lot more, I want to say ebb and flow in their programming. So they could have lost a handful of employees. That's why that number looks less compared to us. But it's something we look at all the time. We meet with our bargaining units. We ask for different plans. We look for different experiences. But the smaller your population, if you have one catastrophic claim, cancer or something really awful, it could go up quite a bit. They probably have more people to spread it, if that makes difference. Yeah. I do find it weird, and you're not the only person. This is the first year I've ever heard of people getting Troy's mailing.
I got it too.
I got it too.
It's weird.
I got it last year.
You got what?
I said, I don't live in the Troy district or this district and I get it. They must send it to
So
everyone.
we get our mailing list through a company that I guess, I don't want to say contracts, I don't know if that's the right word, but uses the rules for the county. I don't think we generate that. That's to my knowledge. I'm not sure how that would happen. To be honest.
I have two thoughts. One is someone has the, I know I had it, I don't know where it is, but we should check the postmark of that because I'm just curious if they're all truly postmarked 5/9, what is going on? And then the other thing is regarding health insurance, I think what would be helpful is if, I don't know if Angelina, you know anyone over that district or everyone else does, or we could just call, but understand, for instance, what their like family rate is. So, we may have just been starting lower and we've gone up and they've started higher, but they haven't had the increase. Stephanie, I think it's like 30,000 or so for a family plan
So
for.
that's the cost to the district of a family plan,
Yeah.
it's about 30,000. That's not the full cost, that's the cost.
To the
of a
district.
family plan.
Yeah.
It's about $30,000, yeah.
So if anyone knows anyone over there, asking them what the cost of a family plan
They
is
could have a
to the
different,
district would help.
they could have a different provider too.
Oh,
They
yeah.
might have.
Yeah,
I'm sure they do.
plan, yeah.
They may have more plans. They may have high deductible options. Who knows?
But it's good information for sure.
And I just want to add, thank you very much, because I was kind of on the verge of tears over here when we were talking about the counselor leaving. And I think that our kids really need the counselor. So I would say, thank you so much for keeping that in there. Thank you so much for not losing these positions, because I think our kids really need them.
The one thing that, I don't want to speak for the board, but one of the things that was really hard for me personally is the people that were on campus and then just didn't come over to vote. I know I've said it before, this is the only thing people can have a voice to. So I do understand when people are frustrated with the economy and all sorts of things. This is their only voice. So the no's are always going to be there. But if people, and the board has heard loud and clear the things that you value and you think are really important, we've got to get those people to make it a really conscientious effort to go and, vote with their feet for sure.
And I just want to, again, emphasize why we're able to do what we're doing, because the state came out with, their budget after we came out with our budget. So there was a little extra funding. And then there's been a shift in staff that gave us some extra funding as well. So that's why we're able to sit around this table and have these conversations and be able to revisit this. So I just want to make sure people understand that.
Science teacher cut is affecting kids.
Yes.
So it's not without penalty.
But
Yeah.
hopefully,
We're trying to weigh the best options we can.
So was the reach TA.
maybe we can get it back into the budget. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Just
So-
kickball.
Right, no, but next year, and like everyone's like, okay, yes, great, we're saving all these jobs. Nothing is saved yet. Nothing
The budget
is
has to
saved
pass.
yet. The budget has to pass, and I'm not trying to be that person right now, but I'm that person. So the budget has to
Everyone has to vote.
pass. Yep.
Just a reminder, if this doesn't pass, all those things
Right,
come
all
off.
these things and
And
everything.
it's out of our control at
Right,
that
at that point, you guys, we can cry and
We don't,
we'll all be
we don't
crying.
get to come back to
We'll
the
all-
table
right,
and say,
we don't-
okay, let's
right.
try one more time. It's out of our
Right, this is
control at
it.
that point.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm curious, I don't know if this is relevant to the conversation right now, but I think this is wonderful what you're doing. I'm just wondering, as you're thinking about what you're sending out to the public, and I'm thinking especially about our seniors, presumably, right, the list of things looks virtually the same as it did before, because the science teacher is new to the conversation, right? So the number, presumably the tax increase will decrease, and that will be publicized.
Yes.
But to the audience receiving the information, how is this going to be marketed? Because I'm wondering, somebody might see the list and think, well, they're coming back with the same thing. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
No, I think you bring up a really good point. And one of the things I shared with the board today is I was hoping to come up with like a frequently asked question list to attend to some of those things. So I am open to ideas. Because I think, anytime you say you're going to do one thing and then don't do that or change it, you're open, to criticism and conversation, even though there's rationale and reason for it. So if anybody has any ideas or thoughts about how to do certain those things,
I think there's three things you need to focus on getting out and educating. One is that you're pulling additional money out of the reserve that needs to be shared very loud and clear so people know where that extra money is coming from and it's not coming from pockets. Two, wrong term to say. Two, that the reason these things are on the table is because there is a vacant position that you're able to keep open. Because they are gonna say, oh, where'd the 111K come for the SRO? This is where it came from. I think that needs to be shared. And three, I really think that you guys need to focus on what happens if we hit contingency. People
how-
know we're gonna lose this and we're gonna lose, they need to see
Can I
it
pick your brain on
from
that a little bit?
parents, from students, like kids crying on a basketball court because they can't play a game or something, like. I hate to say
Worse
that,
than
but
that.
like, a fear campaign needs to happen because I don't think people truly know what will happen if we fall into contingency. I'm so fearful of that.
I think you're right. And I think people think that, I'm speculating, I think this is not just a Tamarack thing. I think this is just in general, oh, shoot, somebody will figure it out. Like there won't be a natural consequence, but there was some criticism, as you know, about, kind of a fear campaign and that kind of thing. So I just wonder, because the reality is the contingency budget is horrible for kids.
Yep.
It's horrible for kids. It is not good for the program in any way, shape, or form. It's not good for staff. It's not good for faculty. It's not good for the community. So that really is something I don't think people want. So how do you balance the keeping it real with not catastrophizing it and making people, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right, because I think Ann's point is well taken, in that we said we were going to cut these things and we did figure it out. So you're right, it is giving,
Figure it out again.
it will figure it out again, and that's a real concern, for sure.
I know there was 2 questions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that exact thing. Everything that I've talked about with my peers is, they'll figure it out. So I do think that you need to put it on the table. Kim and I talked to friends about sports are gone, and it's very much of, there's no way.
They're bluffing.
Yeah.
It's not our
That's not our
like,
choice
it's not in our control.
No,
And
we don't
I-
say that's what.
Right, no, and you can, I don't wanna say like you can say that, but it's kind of like, I mean, I hope, I don't know how many people are logged in right now, but it literally is not this board's choice.
Right.
If we go to contingency on what's being cut and what's being saved. I mean, we're gonna be at all right, like so behind, I don't even know how to explain it because
So
it's-
I just want to clarify one thing too, because this question came up. If we go to contingency, God forbid, we cannot touch our fund balance. Is that,
No, that's not true.
we can, so we could, but we just can't
We can't
You
raise
can't
it.
decide what we're
recommend
going
this.
You
to.
can't raise taxes more than this current school year. So if it's X amount, that's the max you have. So all the increases of things that you've talked about, you would only have that fixed amount of revenue.
$500,000.
$1,000 we'd have to.
It's interesting that you said like people think you're bluffing
Yeah.
because
They
the
do.
government official who I reached out to pretty much told me that, like, figure it out. You always do. It's the same song and dance every year. So thank you.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
To add one more point to that,
You do not.
what we just discussed is still $207,000 of cuts out of $234,000 that we need to make. So yes, it's less than 350, but it's not nothing. And, that is lost science programs. It's no kickball program. I'm sure some parents will be devastated by that. It's no Reach TA. I'm glad that we can operate Reach in some capacity, but it will not be as good as it is now because you have one less person doing it. And what's the other thing?
Council.
The counselor, the elementary.
No.
We're
Don't
still,
do that to me.
sorry.
I think it's just Huddle. Get less on a platform with
And
that one.
even when we're talking about huddle, we keep turfing it back to the booster club. As if the booster club can come up with $15,000 to
That's
play for
That's a
huddle.
huge effort.
It's a big ask.
Their expenses as a booster club, I mean, I haven't been involved in the booster club in the last year, but prior to that, their expenses have gone up significantly as well. And they were also struggling to find what things needed to stay in their budget and what things needed to come out. So that's a big number.
Question on the difference between the budget increase that failed and what you're proposing now. What percent increase would it be if roughly?
3.55, right?
So that's the tax increase.
The tax cap is 3.55. We previously went out at 5.9.
All right, it was 5.9. we're bumping it down to 3.55. All right, so that's it.
That would only require a 50% plus one,
All right.
as opposed to the,
So even any percentage over, so we went to the tax cap of 3.9 or 5.9. If we wanted to save all of this and it only came out to another increase of 4.75 or whatever, you go over the tax cap, you still need a supermajority vote. So it doesn't matter the 60%. So that's why we are not taking that chance of any little, even just 1%, we'd still need
And
the 60%.
Angelina or Stephanie, can one of you explain, because I think there's, reading some of the emails, there's like different percentages that are sometimes referenced, like 7.3%, et cetera. Like, I think there's the tax cap percentage, and then there's also like the,
budget to budget.
yes, budget to budget increase,
So the budget to budget,
6.9.
budget to budget rollover, and the difference between that and the increases is because you're using fund balance.
Thank you.
On our mailer that goes out, I think it would probably be beneficial to highlight that we are under the tax cap now.
For
sure. At.
So
0%.
have you guys looked at any grants?
Yeah, we, one of the ones that I've been currently looking at is the COPS grants for, that's the big SRO one. And they do a lot of like school safety and stuff like that.
Okay.
To be honest with you, one of my huge worries right now is the volatility with the federal grants. And again, I don't want to speak this into existence in any way, but if those federal grants were to get cut or something like that as they flow through, we would have a whole nother set of problems. So to answer you, yes. And if anybody sees one, even something as simple as an agriculture grant, like anything, you name it, we're willing to put in for it.
Okay. Do we have a district grant writer to send that kind of stuff?
Not the budget.
Okay, right, because
If you're a grant writer, though, if anyone else is a grant writer, that would help.
when I spoke to Jake, he said that his office would be more than happy to help you guys look into any grants.
That's awesome. And like I said
Or
before,
SRO
he-
or anything.
he has been a huge advocate for the bill, and the bill is bigger, certainly bigger than us. It's not a pile of money for us. That, if anybody's gonna advocate for anything, I would really, really recommend that, because that getting traction helps all kids in every school. And I think that's systemically where it needs to come from. I know I've said it before, I see this as an arm of community policing. I wish there was a cost share that's associated with it, because when you think about it, they fund schools for an education program, right? An education program. And this is one of the things that's, it's a treasure. It's wonderful. And our SRO is fantastic, but it definitely adds to the things for sure. So the answer is yes. If anybody finds something, send it my way. If I can't do it, I'll find somebody to help me with it or get the right resources. Happy to do that. And I will reach out to him.
John?
And Angelina, I just want to go back to the science teacher for a second. So is it purely electives, or are now the general science classes also going to have higher class sizes?
There's a chance that some of the classes could have a higher class size. There's a
So
chance.
it's not just electives. I just kind of wanted to make sure
I
that.
don't have the
everybody-
exact schedule in front of me right now to look at who's teaching what, but it would be mostly electives impacted.
Okay.
They're getting eliminated, most likely, and they'll probably, the side effect, but
Well, no,
without
so,
fact, they'll probably
I
increase.
mean, my question was, is general biology now going to have 30 kids instead of 25 kids, for example? You know what I mean? Like
I know
that.
what you mean.
That's kind of where I was going.
I think what's hard for me to answer, and that's why I don't want to give you a definitive answer, is it depends on how the kids get programmed. So if one thing happens, sometimes that impacts another place where they could go. So I can't say that the class sizes.
Because my only concern, it's not so much if elective A now has more kids, because it's an elective and that's great.
Yep.
But my concern is that Regents classes are now going to have a higher class size. That's just kind of what was in my head, hearing that we're going to lose that science position.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, so Stephanie, I guess you just need to give us a number.
Yep. $30,821,838.
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
$30,821,838.
And can we just, read through for everyone's benefit what's staying in from
Yeah,
the cut list.
you have that?
So this is what I understood the conversation to be. The SRO would be preserved.
For a one-year contract.
A science teacher would not be replaced.
Correct.
The elementary kickball program would not continue. The elementary guidance counselor would remain. The huddle will remain on our rolls, but we're going to be getting hopefully a donation from the Booster Club. Graciously, thank you. Again, I don't know how long they could even sustain that long-term, and I do need to share with them about the full price and backing out the aid. The music teacher would remain at 1.0 FTE instead of half-time. We would continue to have 3 UPKs, which includes a teacher and an aide that's associated with that. The REACH teacher, the REACH program would remain, but we would not be filling the REACH TA that's associated with that. Did I understand that correctly?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So that amount is $30,821,838, and again, that's using fund balance as well.
That's using a little bit more than originally planned.
It's the
Yeah.
27,934.
Basically 27,000 more than originally.
Okay, so we actually need a motion to put that on the table, 2.1 and 2.2. Ryan, Leah,
So I'll just read it out loud. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the proposed district budget in the amount of $30,821,838 for the 2025-2026 school year for presentation to the residents of Brunswick Central School District at the budget hearing on June 5th, 2025, and for vote by the qualified residents of said district on June 17th, 2025. Those dates are important because at that hearing, the budget hearing, it's basically kind of a redo of this. People have an opportunity to give an opinion, but the board adopts that budget tonight, so it's not malleable for the next meeting. Does that
understood.
make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Do we need to make any exception regarding huddle in that resolution
They can't do it.
in case they are unable to?
Right, if they can't make that donation, it needs to be removed.
So I think, and Steph, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not, when you're voting on the budget, you're not voting on programs, so to speak. We actionalize it. You're voting on that dollar amount.
And I'm offsetting with revenue, so it's really,
A wash.
yeah, it's a wash.
Can I just get a confirmation that it's the tax cap 3.55?
3.55.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So that's a 50% vote that we have to achieve.
Correct, 50 plus 1.
50 plus 1.
Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. I think we just need a meeting to adjourn, or,
Oh, yeah, we have.
2.1, I'm sorry, 2.02. Motion to put that on the table. Leah, Danielle,
Just for the record, this is to increase the price we're paying poll workers. We couldn't get anybody to work. It was $15.50. People were not interested in that rate.
And we're still gonna need quite a few more, so if you know anybody who's interested in working in polls, please let me know.
Just clarification on that, because I know we had a few people ask, do they have to do the training through Rensselaer County, or is that a no because it's a school book? They don't.
They don't have to know.
So just able bodies that can read English and are
18 years old.
Registered voter.
You have to be a high school graduate, right?
and lives in the district.
Yep.
And you're certain registered voter, they have to be registered.
Good kids do.
No. You don't have to be a grad.
Okay.
No, you're right. You're
We
right.
did.
You're right.
Could kids get like volunteer something, a senior, somebody to do it if you only have to be 18?
If they're registered.
Registered.
They're gonna be registered. The link,
Yeah.
they're coming on Monday.
Okay.
While we're still
Do that.
Anybody that has someone like that, send them to Stephanie.
Please.
How many more?
We're gonna need quite a few more. There's not gonna be a lot of people who are gonna work that 13-hour shift.
Okay, we'll get you more.
So we'll do shifts.
Yeah, a few shifts to make it.
Do you provide anything for our voters? Lunch, something, drinks?
A water bottle?
Our gratitude.
What's the new rate? That's what we provide?
We're buying pizza, right? I mean,
$17.50 a bottle of water.
Yeah, I think the big thing though, especially now that everything is digitalized, and it's not, oh, I know Danielle's lived wherever she's lived. The more people can go on and just check their registered status through that link, the better off they'll be. I don't know why people are getting Troy mailing things, so I don't know to where even to pull that string to go figure that out. So the best thing people can do is to go check their status. It should be really clear. It's easy once you put it in. I think you need your date of birth, your last name, and something else, and it should pop right up. And then if there's a problem, if they do it now, then there's time to attend to whatever that is. I know on our website, absentee ballots, early mailing is available. So if people are going to be out of town, they can do that, but they can't walk in with it. They've got to be able to do that.
I know that information has been shared on social media once, but if we could share it again.
Is there, besides an email and our socials and the website and the things, is there any other place that it should go?
Stewards.
I would say the,
Community poster in stores.
I would say the Eastwick Press, but they're not in business. I'm not sure if people get a regular.
Yeah.
That was on there.
Even Modesty.
New York.
Oh, she used to work for
Can you
you, so she might know, have a suggestion.
Marquis, like both.
Yeah.
I did ask them last time. I don't know if it actually made it on there, but I did ask all of our local, I asked Reamertown, Eagle Mills, Center Brunswick. I did ask them all to put it on their marquee.
I mean, let's do it now and get up the date.
Yeah.
Let's Sidewinder. I like everybody in Capital District.
Everybody loves
Not
Sidewinder.
good. Everybody. Or Weatherman G. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's gonna rain on Budget Go Day, like.
Sidewinder posted your routes, your bus routes today.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Say that again?
Sidewinder,
Did he really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about, I don't know.
Everybody follows
Two
that.
buttons.
Weatherman G.
That's a good one.
Yes.
If anybody has an expertise in marketing, one of the things that we talked about was some signage with like a QR code. Chris just mentioned, the concerts and things like that. Whatever you think would be eye-catching to catch people's attention, please pass it along. The intention is to inform people, but not overwhelm them. And I know that's a really fine line to find that space.
Yeah, I think we,
I'm sorry, just one thing I wanted to mention, I know it's kind of a bit of a viewpoint at this point, but in the flyers that had gone out, had mentioned that adopting the tax levy increase would be of 5.9%. So I think that was a bit maybe confusing to people, thinking that it's 5.9% on top of the 3.5. So when we send out, documentation for this time, so that it's clear that, very crystal clear what it is.
Well, there's certainly going to be limited information you can put on a postcard, right? So if I heard Lori, right, Lori said, talk about how we're here, meaning you're pulling additional funds, talked about why there's extra money, meaning there was additional state aid that was occurred after the budget vote. And then if I'm hearing you correctly, to be really clear that this is at the state tax cap and what it is.
and that we made some cuts to get here.
It's a 6 by 11 postcard.
On that table though, that whole thing is like state supplied in terms of the levy increase and everything. Yeah, it's
So that one form looks like kind of
clear as mud.
like a spreadsheet, that is the one thing that we do have to do. There's nothing else required except that information. Obviously, we try to inform people about some of the things in our program and, those kind of things, so people understand the value added that you're getting out of the program.
Did you pick certain boxes to highlight? I'm not kidding. Like, it's there, but people look for the highest number and they're like, it goes over so many people's head. Like, could you highlight, like, this is a 2% increase compared to the tax cap. You know what I mean? Like, people see that 5 or the 7 and the levy difference, and they don't grasp it.
Yep.
And I know that's not going to fit on a postcard.
I really do think too that if your audience is the group of people that we're trying to get out to, frankly, to vote yes, right? We know that we're gonna have people in numbers voting no. We talked about that last week. You're hitting that audience, so I think what set it out, this is what's gonna happen if we go to contingency. This is what we're potentially losing. I think is key. I really do believe if you say to parents, if this does not pass, however you can phrase that legally, we might lose sports or we might lose UPK, 3 bullet points as clearly stated as possible. That is what's going to get the group of people out who are going to vote pro for this budget. And even my son, who is hugely into sports here, said it will never happen. We'll never lose sports. right? I think you have to say, put this in concrete language that this is a possibility.
What about a letter from the board that goes out well in advance to the parents, like explaining?
Yep, that can easily get out. A letter can, but the only people we capture that way is the parents that we have current emails for. So, I mean, but again, you can put it on the
But if
social.
it's
Maybe a mailing too, like a physical mailing?
Can't we send, I know we can't
Believe it or
send
not, they're
home,
expensive.
I know, that's what's,
60 cents a person or
can
something.
can we send home a letter in a backpack? I know that
That we
there's.
have to be very careful about.
But if it's from the board stating what's gonna happen if this budget like
I didn't ask that question specifically. I will, because I don't want to get us in election stuff.
Third party flyer.
I don't think you can, but I can.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. There
are other people-
There are other
Other
people who
agencies
can,
can.
right?
The district would just have to be careful about what resources they use and what
But like
those
there's
resources.
a
distribute it.
budget, a vote coming up. This is, an informational piece, but this is what is at stake. This is what will happen if the budget should fail, and this is what your contingency budget looks like. It's an informative piece along with the mailer, but it has to go out after the mailer?
No, not necessarily.
It could go out now.
We could do it before. Or the PTSA could do it
Because
before.
I'm hearing from what people were saying before, we waited too late to get information out, so we, educate them now, and then the follow.
postcard can't go out until the day after the budget
Right.
vote, but I think depending on what you craft in a letter, I don't see why that couldn't go out. I think you want to capture it in people's memories, like you don't want to go too far in advance.
I think this will.
No, this one
might.
this one we need
The other
to,
thing too, I think, particularly since you're talking about sports, and that's really going to capture people's attention if we're being honest, is, the youth baseball, the youth softball, the cheerleading, the Bulldogs, those kind of things to understand, to get that younger group of parents that maybe their kids aren't playing interscholastic sports yet, but they will at some point. So having,
When you talk to kids, it's not even the sports. It's like, what do you mean I'm not gonna have clubs and music? And it's not just the sports, it's all the extracurricular.
And just really important point, because I know in at least one of our lawmaker emails, there was the point of like, well, schools always find the money. And I think that partially refers to, right, the reserve and the fund balance, et cetera. So there's, parts of that are true, like you can find money, there's future consequences, but yes, with a contingency budget, we are dictated what we can spend money on. We cannot make up that gap using reserve/fund balance, because there are restrictions on what we can have regardless of tax increase. So there's no secret sauce there.
Can you use the reserve if it's for a mandated expense?
So there's certain expenses that you specifically can't buy. So like in a contingent budget, we cannot buy school buses.
Right.
Like flat out, no.
Right.
A lot of equipment purchases, hardware, state aid hardware you can buy, but like things like, upgrading teacher Chromebooks, like that may be an item, that we wouldn't be able to purchase.
we couldn't let
Different
people use our
equipment,
facilities. We would have to charge. That's a big one.
I think this is the stuff that needs to.
Yep.
They're short 5-minute clips, like, I wanna see an interview with the SRO, I wanna see somebody walk in the UPK classroom to see Nicole Macho's face beaming with a huge smile teaching kids, like, I think those little
Videos.
those little touches, like those people need to see that and they need to hear it. So when you do My Jersey, Your Impact, maybe that day you tell all the seniors to give their jersey to their parents to wear proudly when they come out to vote on our budget to save our sports program. Or have the UP kids, kids draw a picture of, can't wait for my new friends to come next year. Something small that we can do and we can share. I think those little impactful things go so far.
We needed to vote on, I think we put it on the table.
We did.
So we're all in favor of that? Yes, you had a question?
Yes.
Okay, forgive me if this has already been said or if I'm wording it wrong, but maybe if we really break it down for people, what the cost is, like it's gonna cost you $20 a month. Instead of giving them this big number or this percentage, this is gonna cost you $20 or $50 a month. I can't imagine anybody saying no to something like that that's gonna be good for kids. So maybe that might help breaking it right down to.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, I think we just need a motion to adjourn. Danielle, Tammy, all in favor? All right, thank you all for coming. I hope to see everybody on June 19th. 17th. Sure. No.
I'm sure that Tiffany's gonna love that. Yes, she